Friday night.
Friday night.
We were just talking about our ride last week and getting some Veo pie.
Eating some veal pie and having some flashbacks to races past up up in St. George. What a great weekend though it was in St.
Yeah,
George.
it
To be
was.
out the race and to watch the race.
Yeah,
And for those people that raced, man, you couldn't ask for a better day.
yeah, it was
Um,
good.
I can't ever remember that. I've been to that race many times on that weekend, it being so cool, and the wind
Hmm.
was pretty minimal.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, what a great day for racing.
it was chilly, and the Thursday there was rain in different parts of St. George, and you start wondering what race day is going to be like. And
Yep,
then it was a little chilly, but manageable.
yep.
It was not unreasonably cold, and I was volunteering, so I saw a lot. I'm doing parking at the entrance of T1, and so I saw a lot of the cyclists leave, and it was actually a lot of fun seeing the different gear that people were using, and some were really bundled up, and I could see them visibly shaking, and some were fine, in a singlet and racing. So it's everyone's a little bit different when you hit these different weather. You get in the water, you get cold, and then some people react really sharply to that, and some manage it quite fine.
I wonder if there's some of the issues too. Is like, was someone wearing booties? Was someone wearing a neoprene cap versus
Yeah,
not?
yeah,
You know, uh, I think that there's that when you get into T1, I don't know about you, but on a cold weather race, when I'm in T1, I've got options.
hmm
Like it depends on kind of how I feel when I get there.
yeah,
If I'm really cold, I'm going to put gloves on. I'm going to put arm warmers on. I have a jacket that I
yeah,
will put on if I'm really cold.
right.
But then there's been times it's been relatively cold and I get there, I'm like, I'm good. Like I
Hmm.
know that
Yep,
it's, especially if it's sunny out, I
yep,
know that with the sun out, I'll be fine. And give me 10 minutes or 15 minutes. I'll be cold for 10 or 15 minutes, but then I'll be fine. But it's
hmm
like kind of a game time decision. I don't know how you handle that. How do you do
hmm
that?
Yeah, no, I love that idea of just having options, because as you come in, you can make a decision as you get out of the water, because sometimes we don't really know what the water temperature is. Yeah, you hear, well, 63 this or 62, but that's wherever they measured it. And you don't really know where, the water temperature may be cooler or warmer. And so you get out, and that's smart to just have that, those options available. And then you can decide to put on the arm warmers, or what to take with you, or what to put on.
Yeah. So John, the question I have to ask, since we were talking about the pie, how was the pie?
Oh, the pie was good. Yeah, you should have had some.
If they had a gluten-free pie, I would have.
Oh, that,
I should have had like like a coconut cream and just ate the inside.
yeah, yeah.
It was so funny because we separated and I rode another, I don't know, like maybe 10 miles to get back
Yeah.
to where I was staying. And I started to bonk.
Oh, really?
I ran out of food. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, I should have had the pie. I would be
Yeah.
feeling better. And about 5 miles away from where I was staying, I was really feeling bad.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I could call Marie and she'd come pick me up.
Yeah.
And it's just 5 miles, and I had a tailwind. And I
Oh, there you go.
can't get picked up. No matter how bad you feel, you get a tailwind.
Yeah,
You got to take advantage
that's
of
right.
it. I
That's
really
right.
should have had the pie.
Oh, yeah, no, the power. That was just nice to do that loop, and people who are from around this will know that Gunlock Vale loop. We didn't do the or the Snow Canyon part. We came down the highway, but it's just such a neat ride up there. We saw the waterfalls,
Oh, the
which
waterfalls were
is really
spectacular.
strange to see running water in that area, and then to get to the top, and we hit that pizzeria first because Vale Pies wasn't open.
I know
Uh,
that was poor. That was poor decision on our behalf. That it didn't open until noon, and we got there too early. But
yeah, yeah.
yeah, but
Oh,
still,
that's
it was really good.
yeah.
So tonight, we're going to talk about tires. So this was
Hmm.
inspired by somebody that I coach, and he was asking me, getting ready for a race. He was like, "Well, what tires should I be running on this race?" And then I really started to think about like all of the factors that go into
Yeah.
tire choice
Hmm.
and tire decision. And what it came down to is it's a gamble,
Hmm.
right? And I don't think a lot of people understand this, or maybe people do, and I didn't fully understand this until I started really looking into it. Is the gamble between rolling resistance and puncture resistance? Not
Yeah.
even a gamble, but the balance,
Hmm.
right? So you can get a very, very, very fast tire that has very poor puncture resistance.
Yep.
And you can choose to race that. And
Mhm.
I've raced tires like that, and man, they're fast, right? But there's the risk of puncture.
Yep.
Or you can go the exact opposite way, and you can say, I'm going to be puncture resistant, and you can get some tires that are almost bulletproof,
Mhm.
right? Puncture resistant, but they're slow. And there's a balance that you have to, and a risk reward. I guess that's the analysis, is a risk reward analysis.
Mhm.
So I've been, I've been all the way down to, like, I'll show the tire, to, well, I don't even have it here, the Corsa Speed.
Yep.
And that sucker was notorious for getting flats. I never flatted racing it.
Right.
And the rolling resistance, when you look at the people that have done the work on this, it is the fastest tire.
Mhm.
And I raced, I don't know, 2 seasons in with that, and I never got a flat. But man,
Mm.
I got flats the day before a race, like
Yeah.
just in a training, like horrendous tire cut flat uh,
Right.
the day before a race, or then I'd still ride them like a little bit afterwards, and I'd get flats, but I never got one during a race.
Yeah.
And so anyways, I think that's the decision, and it's a really tough decision to make. So where do you fall on this risk reward analysis?
So for racing, I have my race tires, which are more on the risk side, but it's also a balance between the tires I use do have reasonably good puncture resistance, but they're more on the lower rolling resistance side. And then but my regular training tires, I'll use whatever I can that try to prevent flats because I can't stand flats during a ride. And I don't mind changing the tire so much. I just don't like the disruption of my of my workout.
Yeah.
I don't like that I have to stop for 10 minutes or whatever the time it takes for me to change it and then start again. My whole schedule then just goes offline at that point. So that little 10-minute really impacts.
Okay, so I have to ask you then. So what is your race tire that you
I
use?
use the GP 5000s, the Continental.
Which ones?
Which one? Oh, goodness.
So the S,
Mm,
the TRS, the TL. Hmm.
I have to go look. I am not sure. Yeah, that's a good question. Let me see what I got on this tire right here because it might be the same.
Okay, so I have,
So this is the 5000. This is the same one.
is it the S or the TR or the TL?
I'm looking. I've got my contacts in, so I can't read as well. Uh,
To plan this out, you didn't know I was going to ask,
no, I didn't. And
because there's a significant difference between them.
oh, really? Okay. Well,
Yes.
tell me the difference. And it doesn't say on the casing, but I
Okay,
can see.
so the S, so the TR, so the tubeless ready,
Yeah, it's not a TR.
it's not a TR.
No.
See, you lose a lot not being a TR. It goes, your rolling resistance at, this is going to call it high pressure, is 10.7 watts.
Uh-huh.
If you do the tubeless ready, the TR, it goes to 9.1. So you're losing a watt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have TRs, but let's talk about the different types of tires
Okay,
because
perfect. So
yeah, because
we're
there's a
going down
reason
this
why
path.
I haven't put the TRs on yet.
Exactly. So I have right here, I've got the TRs
Okay.
and I've got the non-TRs, so just the Grand Prix 5000.
Okay.
So I'm losing 1 watt,
Yep.
gaining 1 watt.
Okay.
So in at Oceanside, I raced this one,
Yeah.
which is losing a watt. So John, why would I choose to lose a watt when I own both?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why would I choose to lose a watt? And they have the
Well,
same puncture resistance.
they have the same puncture resistance.
Same puncture resistance.
Hmm. Why would you choose the slower tire for Oceanside?
Yes.
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, what is it because you got the speed limit on the downhill?
No.
And it doesn't really matter?
Okay. So the tubeless ready,
Yeah,
this one,
yeah.
is way, way harder to get on
Hmm.
and get off.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I need two tire levers and all of the strength in the world.
Right, right.
And remember, we're running these with tubes.
Yeah,
Okay.
metal core tire levers too.
Right. And it took me, I don't know, 20 minutes to get one on one time.
Hmm.
And so I'm like, well, for 1 watt, I think I'd rather be able to get it on and off. And
Hmm.
because if I do get, even though they have decent puncture resistance, once again, not great, decent. If I can't get it off and be able to
Yeah,
change it,
yeah.
then
You're all in. You're all
yeah,
in.
I'm well, then in that case, well, I might as well just go with even a faster tire.
Yeah, don't even take any tire kit at all. Don't
No, don't take anything
yeah.
because for 20 minutes of me figuring out how to change it. And maybe I'm not, and I've practiced, we talked about this, I've practiced
Yeah,
changing tires a lot.
right.
So then in Continental, there's now that you can go up to the Grand Prix 5000 TT.
Hmm.
So that's the time trial. So you have the regular, the tubeless ready, the TR.
Okay.
Then even faster is the TT, and that is 7.6 watts.
Okay.
So now that's 2.5 watts faster.
And what speed is this test being done at that? Is this
I,
the 40 kilometer per hour?
yeah, I think it's the
Yeah,
40
it's
kilometer
probably
per hour.
so you're going roughly 25 miles per hour, 24.8. So,
So last year at the 70.3 World Championships, I raced the TTs
hmm.
because I know at St. George the roads are really good.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's part of that goes into it. Is like I'm more confident in those roads.
Hmm.
And Oceanside's roads there's sections of it that are really, really bad.
Hmm. Yeah,
You know,
that's true.
and so that kind of goes into the thought process for me.
Okay.
Um, I'm
Well,
trying to figure out, always, that risk reward, and then looking at,
mhm.
especially if you look at past races, like how many times have you seen people on the side of the road fixing a flat at that race?
Yeah, yeah, right, right, right.
So there's
Well,
anecdotal.
let's even back up a little
Yeah,
bit more and talk about the different categories of tires. Obviously, this tubeless tire is one that we're talking about. That's a clincher that does not have an inner tube in it.
right,
Right. All right. So that's tubeless, but it's still a clincher. The other tire is a clincher that has to have a tube in it.
right.
And then the third kind is a tubular, which does not have, you don't need a tube because the tire and the tube are all one unit.
Yeah, but basically nobody runs those anymore.
No, not anymore. And you really need different rims for
Yeah,
tubular. And so tubeless, clincher, and tubular are really sort of phased out at this stage. So the rims are, you have to have a different type of rim. You got to glue them on. It's a whole process that is quite different. I remember when I did do Norseman, it's the only time I rode tubulars because I borrowed someone's bike
that's
and
what
it
they
was a tubular. And I said, I don't know how to change this. And he says, oh, don't worry about it. Here it is. You just, rip it off and put the other one on and you'll be good.
Did you have to do it?
No, fortunately I didn't need to, but I was stressing about that because I wasn't really sure what would happen if I did have to change a tire. So,
Well,
um,
the other thing I'm going to add is, so you have the clinchers and you have the tubeless, but the tubeless are tubeless ready.
yeah, that's right. Okay, so go ahead and explain that because it's
So what it means is on the correct rim, if you have a rim that's tubeless ready and a tire that's tubeless ready, you can run it without a tube and you just put sealant in it.
yeah,
But that doesn't mean you can't put a tube in.
right.
So like I've ridden a lot of tubeless ready tires with
Mhm.
a tube in it. And we've talked about the pros and cons of running tubes and running tubeless. I prefer still to run tubes, even though I've purposely bought rims that are tubeless ready, and one of these days I'm going to pull the
Yeah,
trigger to do it. But I haven't. But you can, like, once again, you can go either way if it's tubeless ready.
yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, and I've got tubeless ready tires ready to go, but I have not put them on yet because I know they're notoriously hard to put on. And I have done a lot of tire changing for some research projects we did in the past. And boy, I can't stand it when that tire is hard to get on or off. That is frustrating for sure.
Yeah.
I've broken quite a few tire levers as well. And I mentioned it is good to have a good pair of tire levers for any tire change. And a lot of times you want a metal core tire lever, not a metal tire lever, because that's going to destroy your carbon rim if that's what you're running.
Yeah, but I think it's really important to think about, like, how easy can you get it on and off, right?
Yeah.
So even a tubeless tire, like
Mm-hmm.
if you're running sealant and
Yep.
you're in a race and you get a flat and you need to put a tube in because that's your backup,
Mm-hmm.
can you get it off,
Right.
unseat the rim, and
Mm-hmm.
get a tube in? Because if
Mm-hmm.
you can't, once again, like you said, well, what's the sense of even carrying a tube?
That's right. That's right. And I've seen people carry cans of sealant that you can
Yeah,
fix a flat type of thing. And we should, the tubeless is just like our cars. Our cars are tubeless,
yeah,
and that's the same concept that is now being applied to biking.
yeah. And if people choose to go tubeless, that's great. You
Hmm.
know, if it works for them, and I know a lot of people that they do it and it works really
Yep.
well.
No.
Um, I'm not there yet, and because I guess maybe I'm a little bit more, I don't know, conservative and in want to be a little bit more safe.
Yeah.
For me, I feel safer. Even though it's probably wrong. I mean, the statistics probably say I'm probably safer with tubeless, but um, I kind of go with what works. And knock on wood,
All right.
I think I've only had a flat in a race once out of like 8
Mm-hmm.
races, and that was user error.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about this before. For big races, we always go new tires and new tubes.
Yep.
Or maybe even for a season, have race tire, race tube. Um, I've done a lot of research in the off season to come up with what I'm racing this season.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally just changed my mind this week because
Oh yeah.
a new
Oh
tire was put out by Vittoria this week. I got one of them.
yeah.
So this is the new tire I'm going to be racing.
Ah.
It's a Corsa Pro.
Okay.
And but I only have the back. I only have the
Oh,
28. The 24 is supposed to come Monday or Tuesday. My race is next weekend. So that is if you've ever ridden a Vittoria tube with a 320 thread count
mm-hmm.
sidewall,
TPI. Yeah.
yeah, they're so comfortable.
Yeah.
So on my road bike, that's what I ride. But I, this is actually now a race tire with that same sidewall.
Yep.
It's supposed to be very, very, very comfortable. It
Mm.
literally, they just started selling them last week.
Okay.
They were using them. They've in the pro peloton. They've been using them for this season. They started using them, and the riders reporting that they're just very, very compliant and they feel good. And the reviews say they feel really nice. And there's something about a nice feeling tire.
Right, right. All right, so let's go back to the question that you actually asked me earlier on is what do I run
Yeah,
for racing versus training?
yeah.
Training, what do you run?
I run the GP 5000s because I've
Okay.
puncture resistance is pretty good.
Yeah. I run the gator skins. They're super slow, a little better puncher resistance, but I still get flats.
See, and the way I look at it, the GP 5000s I run are all previous race tires,
Yep.
or now that I've moved on to a different tire, I have a few of those still in stock. Those will be my
Yep.
training tires.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't own any gator skins anymore. I used to, and I used to wear them or use them in the winter. But now I seem like I ride indoors in the
Yeah,
winter.
right.
And it was more because I didn't want to change tires when my hands were cold.
Oh, right, right. No, that's true.
Yeah.
And I do see a day where we will not have pneumatic tires.
Yeah.
I think there continues, be, development, especially for e-bikes and mountain bikes on non-pneumatic or air pressured tires. And so boy, I look forward to that day that we can ride
When
on something.
it's like almost like a solid core, like a foam, like a
Yeah,
shoe,
yeah, that's right.
right?
That's right.
You'd think that they'd be able to take that, that foam that's in those high-end racing shoes
Hmm.
and make that the inside of a tire
Yep.
and be good to go,
Yeah.
right? But
I know. Okay, so we've got actually some comments here. I gotta get caught up with Bob. Bob's got some comments here that are really good. Um, earlier on, he said, depends on your rim, hook bead or not, right? And yeah, the tire choice, you do need to
there's hook,
match.
yeah, but there's hookless rims and non-hookless rims.
Hmm.
So he's right, but and here's the thing is hookless rims, I guess we should talk about that. They're basically just straight down into the well, right?
Right,
Where a hooked has like a little hook on it. Most wheels are hooked. Now it's really tricky stuff because you have to find the exact, if you go a hookless rim, you have to have a hookless tubeless tire.
right.
And size really also matters. So I can tell you on this new Corsa, they work on hookless rims only if they're a size 28 or above.
Okay.
If they're 26 or below, they don't work on hookless rims.
The
So
wheel or the tire?
the tire won't work on the hookless rim. You have to know that.
Mhm.
And they're becoming, hookless rims are becoming more popular, but I still think it's definitely not mainstream to have a
Mhm.
hookless rim yet.
Okay. So but what's interesting is the two things that we need to look at for width is the width of the tire
Yeah,
and
I was gonna,
width of the wheel. Yeah.
that was my next, the next
Okay.
piece I was gonna talk about is size,
Yeah.
right? So was that on the question from Bob?
Not yet. No,
Okay,
no, no.
so size is really, really important. And we've talked about this size as far as rolling resistance.
Mm-hmm.
In general, and we did some research on this, we did quite a bit of research on this.
Yeah.
In general, a wider tire has better rolling resistance
Mm-hmm.
to a certain point, right?
Yeah.
And so historically, people were running tires of like 19, 21, and we're talking about
18.
millimeters in width. I think when I
That's right.
started riding, it was 19 was kind of
Yeah,
like,
we were using 18s back when I was racing in the 80s.
so that's pretty narrow.
It was very narrow.
And now kind of the sweet spot is 25 to 28
Mm-hmm.
is what most people are riding. And the rims are getting wider to accommodate those. And then the other thing is with the width is, can your frame handle it?
Yeah, that's right. And that's actually a really great point because a lot of frames, especially rim brake frames,
Yeah.
won't be able to handle a certain width of tire, or there's a pretty good limit on that. Like you might not be able to go over a 28. And when we say 28, we're talking the width of the tire itself.
Yeah.
And the 700 is the diameter of the tire, and so how big around it goes. So by like 728s, we're talking about 700 being this long diameter,
Yeah.
and the 28 being that width of
Yeah.
that tire.
And then the rim, and to confuse things even further, the rim manufacturers will tell you the width of an internal
Yeah.
width, and an internal width still is like between 19 and 21
Yeah.
once again, millimeters.
Yeah. And so then, go ahead.
Okay, so then the other thing I was going to add on that is most of the manufacturers of higher end rims will also tell you which width of tire is best for that wheel. It'll be basically the tires, so the wheels will basically be meant for a certain width of tire. There was a wheel that I was looking at, and it said specifically it was engineered for a 23.
Okay.
Right. Or you find one of my wheels now, it was engineered for a 25. And if I put a 28 on there, it can still fit, right? It'll just balloon out a little bit, and it might not be as aerodynamic.
Right.
I might get a better rolling resistance, but not as good aerodynamics.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that people are doing now, and this is what I'm advising people on, is find out, especially the front,
Mm-hmm.
what it's been engineered for. And most are like engineered around 25 still. So run a 25 in the front, and then the rear, where aerodynamics aren't nearly as important, is run a 28 in the back. And that's what I'm doing. I'm running,
Yeah.
actually, I'm going to run a 26 in the front and a 28 in the back because Victoria doesn't make a 25 in
Right.
this tire.
And you run rim brakes,
I run rim brakes.
right? And so that your frame and is designed to be able to handle that. I know
Yeah.
some frames aren't, like even my older time trial bike would not handle anything over a 25. And so that is before everyone rushes out and buys a wider tire.
Yeah.
I know two things. Can your wheel handle a wider tire, and can your frame handle a wider tire? Generally, disc brakes, you have more options in terms of width of tire.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. But you can still have it on the oh, I can't remember what it's called. It's not the
The
seat stay.
chain stays. Yeah,
The chain stay could
yeah,
be narrow,
right.
and
That's
you
right.
might not be able. You might be able to. All of them, I think you can do a 28, but some people can't fit a 30.
Yeah, yeah. So those are that's part of the decision in terms of what width of tire you're going to look at. Okay, let me read Bob's next comment. Do you ever consider a tubular tire? I've got a set of tubular wheels with courses speed tubulars ultra fast, but I don't want to carry an entire tire with me. That's the problem, is that with tubulars, you've got to actually take another tubular tire, or you take some sealant with you. And if you do get a puncture type of flat, you can use that sealant to try to fix it.
And I think it would also depend on your situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
If that tire tube combination is really, really light,
Yeah.
and you're doing a hill climb where speeds are a lot less, and you get less punctures at lower speeds.
Mm-hmm.
So if that was the case, and let's say you're climbing Mount Charleston, it was a race. There used to be that race.
Mm-hmm.
Consider that if it's a completely lighter setup. But other than that, or maybe like a 10K time trial,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? So
Yeah.
it's short,
Yeah.
and it's the fastest set of tires you have, or tubes, or sorry, wheel tire combination you have. Maybe then.
Yeah.
But I definitely, if the race really mattered to me, especially like a longer, like a 70.3 or an Ironman, I don't want to be carrying an extra tire
Mm-hmm.
around, because that's what you have to do with those. You have to
That's
literally
right.
carry an
Yep.
extra tire.
Fold it up and carry it, you got to stick it under the seat. And I'm glad you mentioned, maybe for something like a time trial, 10K time trial, something like that. For sprint races, I don't take any flat kit.
Yeah.
I take my flat kit off my bike and for a sprint race, because it's all in at that point. And if you get a flat, you're pretty much, you're pretty much out
That's
at that point.
very defeatist, John.
It
You tell me you
is.
can't change a flat in less than 2 minutes.
That's right.
You,
Oh,
you,
that's all it.
you've not won your age group by less than 2 minutes before.
Yeah.
That's very
I
defeatist.
don't think I can change a tire in 2 minutes, but that's a good goal to have.
There you go. So that should be your goal, is to take your
Uh,
flat kit with you. And if it
yeah.
happens, because that's a better story, right? Hey, I got on the podium and I had a flat tire. Like, that sounds
Yeah,
even tougher than, hey, guess what? They had to come get me in a truck.
that's right.
That sounds horrible.
It is. Well, and one time I did get a flat on a race, and but they did have a swag wagon, and they came by and were able to fix it. And I said, well, I was there for 20 minutes, but I said, oh, I'm still going to go. And I still went and did the race. And I was hoping to get on the podium still. I was working so hard. I just wanted to get on the podium and say I had a 20-minute,
So
to
worst
stop.
case scenario, if you'd have brought your stuff with you, it'd have been 5 minutes,
Yeah,
and you
yeah,
would have got
right.
on the podium, and that would have been a great story, right?
I still don't take a flat kit on sprint races. So. On Olympic, I think I will, but mostly for sprints, I don't.
So
And
why?
definitely for a 70.3 and a
So
Iron.
why though? What's the penalty to taking this little tiny flat kit?
It's the mindset. I am going all in on sprints. So.
You're a weight weenie, right? You're like that. Those 40 grams are good.
That's right. Yeah, I could lose 40 grams right here, but no, that's all right. So now Bob's next comment is also, what do you think of Tubolito tubes?
Tubulitos. Yeah.
Tubolito. Okay, I don't know them, obviously. Ultralight and great puncture resistance.
Yeah, so this is a great question. So they are ultralight, and they have the rolling resistance very similar to latex, but
Okay.
they are a little bit more puncture resistant.
Mm-hmm.
They're very expensive. I think they're like $25 a tube.
Mm-hmm.
And you should not, from my reading, should not run them if you have rim brakes.
Why is that?
Right. The heat of the
Okay.
rim brake, something with it can actually cause a puncture, which we've talked about before, that that happened to us in
Yep.
Austria.
Mm-hmm.
Happened to a lot of people in Austria in a very technical descent. So if if you got the money and you got a rim a disc brake bike, not a bad option.
Yeah.
And they're really tiny.
Mm-hmm.
They roll up to like less than an inch in diameter. But then
Mm.
if you're running a deep dish wheel, then you got this long 100 millimeter stem come off. It looks like a Tootsie Roll or a Tootsie
Yeah.
Pop.
Yeah. Right.
So,
Right. Oh, funny.
yeah.
All
And
right. Good.
don't get me wrong, I could be wrong about that heating issue. I just read that somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't have any evidence in my own to support that.
Then he says pros are running 25s, not 28s for whatever reason. And yeah, that, you know, you know, I don't know. It just seems weird to be going wider and wider and wider. I've got a set of 32s I want to put on and just try it and see what it's like. But it is, and you mentioned this earlier, there is a balance between comfort, rolling resistance, and aerodynamics.
Yeah.
And it might be that the wheels that they have are best designed for the 25s, not the 28s. And even a penalty in terms of aero while putting a 28 on a wheel that's designed more for a 25, that may be, really impactful for a pros race.
I would say for me, riding the 28, especially in the back, they are more comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
You can run them at lower pressure, and lower pressure also means less flats.
Mm-hmm.
So between the two, I think it's roll. I think there's a little bit better rolling resistance. There's definitely a little bit
Yeah.
more comfort, especially on some of these rough chip seal roads.
Mm-hmm.
Like John, I don't know how you guys did it back in the day on 18s on chip sealed roads.
And we
Man,
120 psi too.
120 psi.
You felt every bump, and
Yeah.
that's what we always talked about. Oh yeah, I can feel it. So
So I think that there is something to be said, especially on a long distance race. If you're on some chip seal or not good
yeah.
roads, I think I might go 28 just for the sheer comfort of 5.5 hours of bumps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like on my commuting bike, my road bike, I run 28s on front
Yeah.
and back
Yeah.
just
Mm-hmm.
because it's more comfortable, and I can
Yeah.
run it at, I ride at 80 psi and
Mm-hmm.
completely comfortable.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to throw the 32s on just for fun. All right.
Yeah.
So then he says, John, you've got the power that negates the heavier tire gator skins, and he needs all the help I can get. Hey, for training, I don't care. I'll
Yeah.
go slow. It doesn't matter. I'm not training speed wise. Uh, for racing, then I'm more concerned. For training, I put, thick butyl tubes in, trying to minimize that puncture as best as possible. And I'll still get punctures. It's extremely frustrating. But yeah, for training, the speed doesn't matter. The power during training does matter.
Yeah, agreed. Have you ever ran sealant in your tubes?
I tried to put it in, and I just made a mess of it. And so no, I put that aside. I've got the sealant down in the garage. I just have not done it, and I need to do
I did it a couple times, and then I got flats, and then I had sealant all over, and it was all sticky, and
it.
I was like, oh, it's not worth it.
Yeah, no. And I know people are very successful with that. And I've ridden with people and they've gotten some punctures and they see the sealant and it worked. And I love it. And I think that's great. I haven't really gotten into that.
Yeah, me either. Okay, so when we're talking about John, you mentioned the 700s
Mhm.
and the diameter. So can people put different number, like other than 700, on their wheels?
Uh, no, because you don't want your tube inside to be folded over
Yeah.
or to be stretched too much. And so that is an issue. And the other thing when you buy tubes is you got to make sure that they are tubes for your width of tire.
Yeah.
I have a lot of old tubes around for my old 18 to 23 or width tires, and I can't use those in my 25 or 28 tubes. I could, but now I'm just running a higher risk of getting a flap, because that it's like a balloon. It's just stretched out so much that it is more susceptible to punctures.
Yeah. I was actually asking more about like the wheel size,
Oh, okay.
the 700C wheel versus a 650B.
Yeah,
So
no, you match them up.
yeah, you got to match them up. And that's a mistake that, people do make, is buying the wrong tire. Oh,
Yeah,
well, this one's on sale. And
yeah, yeah.
and especially now there's a lot of 650B wheels out there, because that's what a lot of gravel riders are
Mhm.
riding.
Yeah.
So make
Wow.
sure you match up.
Mhm.
And in the case of most triathlon, almost all triathlon is 700C.
Yep. Yep.
And once again, that's the diameter of the wheel
Mhm.
that you want to match up.
Yep.
And once again, practice getting them on and off. And if you can't get it on and off in a certain amount of time, they're probably not going to work well for you.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so that being said, have we um helped me make a decision of what I should be riding next week at my race at Morro Bay?
Uh, well, the work that we did with flow cycling, it really does matter what the road conditions are. And, if this is what's nice about, doing a race several years, like you're very, very familiar with Oceanside, so you know what to expect in terms of road conditions. And, John at Flow also he went around that course and he talked about the different types of surfaces, even in Oceanside. I don't know what Morro Bay has. Do you know the surface that you would
Yep.
tend to get?
I've even ridden on it. It's a highway. It's the
Oh, oh,
highway, it's
nice.
the Pacific Coast Highway out and back.
Hmm.
And it's a pretty good surface.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so, I honestly, I said I'm going to run these Corsa Pros, but my heart wants to go with the time trial tires to be just a
Why is
little,
that?
because they're faster.
Oh,
And I know the road is pretty good there. So
so
it's
you worried about puncture resistance between the two
that's the
tires?
difference, is the puncture resistance.
Mm-hmm.
And do you gain the watt and a half, and
Mm-hmm.
then what does that mean in 56 miles? It means like 20 seconds, right?
Yeah, right, right.
And then I was like, man, I've won races by 20 seconds and I've lost races by 20 seconds. Not that I'm going
Yeah,
to win.
yeah.
I have
Mm-hmm.
no preconceived notions that I'm going to win, but
Mm-hmm.
uh, you want to do things that in racing that are the fastest. But once again, this is like the thought process and the gamble
Mm-hmm.
that goes into this. So um, yeah, it's
Well,
it's always
you know,
tough.
I think for big races, you and I both put new tires on.
Yeah.
And for races that are not our A race, I don't know, I'll use older tires. Like the tires I have on my wheels right now, I used last season as well.
Yeah.
But when we go to Lati, I'll put new tires on for that, and get that all set up. And that's one of the things that a lot of people do when they go to a race, is putting on a new race tire, from your training tire, which may be worn down. That can be a big difference in terms of how well you're going to race.
Yeah. No, for sure. For me, like putting a new tire, new tubes, then you throw an aero helmet on, and all of a
Oh,
sudden, and you're moving faster,
yeah.
and it's a really good feeling. The one other thing I was going to talk about, John, was where I found this stuff. So there is a website called bicyclerollingresistance.com,
Hmm.
and they have tested literally every tire except for this new Corsa Pro has not been tested yet. But it's really good. The only thing that they do, they charge a fee if you want to have the numbers for lower rolling or lower pressures. So you kind of have to infer from their higher pressure tests. But they do rolling resistance and puncture resistance and wet grip. So how
Hmm.
grippy the tire is as well are all tested. The other website that I see, it's an app that I really like, is the Silka's tire pressure calculator. So you can actually put in a bunch of data. You put in your weight, the width of your rim, and you measure this: the width of your rim, the width of the tire, um, the surface that you're going to be riding on, and it'll actually tell you what pressure to run.
Hmm.
with the optimal pressure, because we did a lot of research on this as well and saw the differences in pressure, especially when there's too much pressure, that you actually end up losing watts in rolling resistance.
All right, I just put both those links in the thread with our live feed.
So the last thing I'm going to ask you, because this is your wheelhouse, is, and because we've been talking about this all night long, can you explain one more time to us what rolling resistance is and why it's important?
Yeah, so rolling resistance is just as it sounds. It's the resistance to rolling an object. So if you even just think about taking a ball and pushing a ball across a surface, eventually that ball is going to stop. The reason why it stopped, well, there's a couple of reasons, but the main reason that we're going to focus on is it's going to stop because of rolling resistance. Now, what's important is you need friction for a ball or a tire to roll. If you don't have friction, you slide.
Yeah.
And so this is the other part of tire construction, is it's got to have the right friction, especially if you're going to be doing lots of cornering, and being able to not slide is a good feature
It's really
of a
important.
tire. Yeah, and that's partly why it's rubber, is that friction to prevent sliding. But rolling resistance is calculated when the tire does not slide, and it is the resistance that you have because of how the tire deforms over the surface. So if we think about, I've got a video on this. If you think about a tire rolling over a bump, it's going to deform over that bump, and then as you pass over that bump, it's going to recoil. And the tire is in essence a bit of a spring at that point. It's going to compress, and then it's going to release, it's going to return back to its original shape. And that elastic behavior reduces the rolling resistance of a tire. And the elastic behavior of the tire is a function of how the tire is built, but also other things like how wide it is and how much air pressure you put in it.
Okay, so what's more important, rolling resistance or aerodynamics when it comes to a tire and a wheel?
Well, if you have a tire that is poor in rolling resistance, it's like riding up a hill of a 1% grade. It can be that much, and that's noticeable. And so the aerodynamics, I think, well, you're catching me without
Sorry.
yeah, I think the aerodynamics still will rule, but it does depend on really what rolling resistance you can achieve and how fast you're really going to be biking.
Yeah.
If you're biking well over 20 miles per hour, then aerodynamics really becomes important. If you're down, averaging 15 miles per hour, maybe 13 miles per hour, well, then aerodynamics has less of a factor, and rolling resistance probably a bigger factor at that point.
Yeah. And I think that historically people have really been concerned about aerodynamics, and that's why
Yeah.
thin tires were such a big a popular thing for a long time, is they were more aerodynamic. And now you as we go to a wider tire, we might be losing a little bit in aerodynamics, but maybe gaining more in rolling resistance. I think that's the theory behind these wider tires. Does that kind of summarize it?
Yeah, and again, the amount of aerodynamic penalty you get for a wider tire is based upon the wheel.
Right.
And the way the wheel accepts the tire really makes a difference in terms of whether or not there's going to be an aerodynamic penalty. So I know John at Flow, he's been creating wider wheels to accept a wider tire and not lose that aerodynamic characteristic of the wheel tire combination.
Yeah, good. Well, I think we covered a lot on tires. I think I'm even more confused about what I should ride, which is good.
Oh.
But worst case scenario, I'm running the ones that were 10 watts.
Yeah.
It's not like, I'm going from really good to best.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely not going the other way. So I think it's a win-win. And if I've got to give up a couple watts, I'll give
Well,
up.
let me ask you again on Morro Bay. You said it's highway, but is it all highway or
All highway.
is it really? Wow.
Well,
Yeah.
there's a tiny section in the town, like it's less than a mile to get to the highway. And it's literally, if you've been to that area, it's up the Pacific Coast Highway 23 miles or 22 miles, turn around and come back. It's literally it's a long out and back on
Oh, wow.
a really, a good highway.
Yeah.
Um, and I've ridden that highway several times, and it's not the smoothest. It's not
Mhm.
like butter smooth, but it's not bad for
Mm.
sure. Yeah.
Well, you're going to take a flat kit, so.
I will take a flat kit for sure. And then when I do get a flat in that race, I'll be thinking about this.
There you
So,
go. And I will be doing Sand Hollow Olympic, and I will consider taking a flat kit on the Olympic. So
is that next weekend?
it's next weekend too. Yeah, yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
And
So
there's no
that,
swag, so I would probably take I'll take a flat kit if nothing else, just to get back.
yeah, because you don't want to be stuck out there
No, there's
walking back
yeah,
in
yeah.
your bike shoes and ruining a set of bike shoes.
Oh yeah, no,
Yeah,
that's no fun.
you definitely don't want that. Well, all right. So then next week we probably need to figure out another time other than Friday night, because you're going to be in Sand Hollow and I'll be in Morro Bay. Maybe post race. We'll do maybe next Saturday night.
Yeah, well, okay, yeah, let's talk offline because we've
Yep.
got a nutritionist lined up. I haven't told you about
Oh,
that.
oh, okay,
So
great.
yeah, so let's talk about our schedule for that.
Okay, perfect. Well, hey, have a great training weekend and enjoy. It's supposed to be really nice weather here, so enjoy some nice weather. And we'll talk to you soon.
All right, great, thanks, and thanks everyone.
Okay, bye-bye.